Welcome to the Crypto Pulse podcast. We're here to guide you through the cryptocurrency universe, using our knowledge, tactics, tips, and tools so that you're empowered to make decisions. We'll also be interviewing some of the best minds in the industry, from CEOs of crypto projects to developers, authors, and industry leaders. And now for the episode. This episode is sponsored by WireX, the pioneer in bridging the gap between cryptos and everyday spending. Find out more at wirexapp.com.
Hello and welcome back to the UK's #1 crypto and blockchain podcast. And on today's show, we have a repeat guest, Ben.
Yes, we do. We were joined by the wonderful and incredibly knowledgeable Eric from the IOTA Foundation. And he comes back today to talk about a project which he couldn't reveal too much about last time.
Oh, no. Well, he certainly spilled the beans.
He did.
So Eric Hopp works at the IOTA Foundation.
Yes.
And the last episode was one of our most popular.
Yeah.
I think that's because the IOTA community
Hugely
are
downloaded.
crazy. Little warning, this does get quite techy. And we're not actually a technical podcast, but Eric is an incredible developer, techie, and self-confessed nerd. And he says, as I quote what he's told us, he's living the dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And he dived into Cubic, which is a project which he has been developing pretty much solo with the help of a few other people over the last year. Talks about some new programming languages which they've developed.
Abracadabra.
And how this new product is going to sit in the real world.
So it's huge. It's going to be absolutely massive. And we hold some IOTA in our portfolio too. So
we do.
We're holding tight. In fact, we're going to probably be holding for a little while.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
Let's hear from Eric and get some updates. So Eric, welcome back to the Crypto Pulse podcast. How have you been?
Great. Very busy. Extremely busy.
Yeah, it looks like there's been a lot going on that side.
So I think when we last spoke, it was several months back, and it was really a bit of an introduction to IOTA for our listeners and some of the use cases and some of the things that were going on, and your own personal story. So what have you been working on? What have IOTA been working on really since we last spoke? What's been the main focus, or have there been many focuses?
IOTA is very diverse in that regard. There are a few projects going on. We've grown quite a lot since then. I think we're up to about 80 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a growth.
We're still adding. So,
brilliant.
Yeah. And those people are divided over several projects. I have to say, because of my focus on Cubic, I'm not that deep into what the other projects are doing. Lots of interesting stuff. There's a rewrite of the reference implementation in C that's going on.
Cool.
That's going to be a lot faster. All kinds of developments.
Eric, what does that mean exactly? Maybe you could just kind of explain what that means to our listeners and how that would improve things.
Okay, the original reference implementation was written in Java, and it was IOTA started out as more as a proof of concept. But we hit that right moment when crypto went up like crazy last year.
Yes,
and so that beta software actually got used in such a way that at some point I think we were number 4 in the cryptocurrency list or something.
I remember
like that.
it. Yeah. I remember that.
Bring back those days.
Yeah, for sure. They'll return. We
just
keep
take a little bit longer.
Yeah,
I actually like it better the way it goes now.
Yes, it's a little.
Those crazy things are not realistic, right?
For sure. I think we're a bit more strong and stable now, aren't we?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a Theresa May joke there, Ben.
Yeah.
Very good.
I rather see a slow growth than that crazy takeoff that has no reality based
Yeah, for sure.
thing. It was just pure emotional fear of missing out going on then.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Eric, when you joined us a few months back, we spoke and touched on Cubic, which at the time was all under wraps. It was top secret,
talk about it,
and we
actually,
couldn't
at all,
talk about
could
it too much. You couldn't say anything, but now I think today we can dive into what it is and what Cubic is and how it works and what you've been working on.
Yeah, at that time we were still figuring a few things out, but once we knew enough, we first created some maybe too much hype for what we were going to show by releasing a video about it. That was really exciting. And then a month later, we revealed the website that explained what Cubic exactly is. Cubic is a platform for cloud-based multiprocessing on the Tangle, on the IOTA Tangle, that anyone can participate in. It leverages the worldwide unused computing capacity to solve all kinds of problems. So anybody can join in with his computer that's idling and use that idling time for processing. Also, just like the rest of IOTA, it is geared towards the Internet of Things. Those devices that you have in the Internet of Things are usually pretty well. They have low capabilities. The processing capabilities are limited. The energy that they can use is limited. So they can't do complex processing. And what we're creating with Cubic is a platform in which those devices can outsource the more heavy computing to other devices that are more capable.
Wow. Okay. That's a really good way of explaining it, Eric, because I'll be honest, I was reading the website and then I read it again and then I still wasn't clear about kind of how it works. But that makes sense. So like what are some of the examples of why that would be required?
Well, like I said, limited capabilities of IoT devices. I mean, take temperature sensors, for example. Right?
Yeah.
They have a very specific function, and the data that they provide usually needs more processing. Let's say you have a bunch of temperature sensors that are dispersed over a larger area, and you want to calculate the average temperature for that area. Then you need all those sensors to provide that data, and somewhere centrally you want to process that data.
So that could work for things like stock value data as well, presumably.
Yeah, it could work for stock value data. It's any data that is available outside of the Tangle that can be imported into a Cubic through what they call an oracle. An oracle is a provider of external data external to the IOTA system. Of course, that brings with it a bunch of security issues.
Sure.
You want to be sure about the data, about the correctness of the data, and that's why in Cubic oracles can be grouped in such a way that several different sources of the same data can be used to validate that the or at least to get a consensus on the validity of the data by comparing the inputs and seeing if there are any mismatches. And we have defined that we need at least a 2/3 majority to be able to determine that it's valid data.
I mean, it sounds absolutely incredible what you guys have achieved, and I know that you've been working so hard behind the scenes to get this thing built. But with the announcement of Cubic now, and it's essentially up and running, how have you found adoption? I mean, are there any real world use cases which are currently live and active?
No, Cubic is a pretty big project. It's a multi-year project. We're currently working on a first proof of concept, and we hope to have that proof of concept ready around the end of this year. For example, we have a bunch of things that are very, very different from other projects. Most importantly, the fact that we're, of course, trinary based.
Yeah.
That means we need to be able to send our data over the Tangle, and IOTA is ternary based, and that's because the guy who designed it, Sergei Vancheklo, the guy who's known as Come From Beyond, he envisioned that in the future everything, most of this will be Internet of Things. Of course, humans are part of this, but compared to the billions and billions of devices that will be running on the Internet of Things, people are, almost an afterthought for IOTA. And that means that you need to focus on those devices and provide something that is really, really appealing to them. And that means low energy usage and very efficient programming. That's why he selected ternary computing. Even though most computers run binary nowadays, it's not really a problem for the Internet of Things, because those devices will probably mostly run on FPGAs and ASICs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hardware, more hardware than software. So the programming language we are using in the Cubic project has been geared towards FPGAs and ASICs. Of course, you can run it on CPUs and on graphic cards and such, but it's more emulation that's going on then. But specifically, it's geared towards creating circuitry from a programming language. So we had to create a completely new programming language that was
Wow.
geared towards that.
And this is Abra, is that right?
Yeah, that language is called Abra.
Abracadabra, of course.
Short for abracadabra, yeah. I don't know if you followed how IOTA came to be, but IOTA is actually a foundation for the Cubic project.
Yes.
Come From Beyond started what he called quorum-based computation. I think way before IOTA, bumped into some problems there, and found out that he needed a messaging platform with payments, and that messaging platform with payments became IOTA. But IOTA was only the first step towards Cubic. So we're going to use IOTA as the backbone for Cubic, but Cubic itself goes way further than that. And so we now have, actually we only have since a few days a really working Abra compiler. So we can actually run Abra programs since about 2 weeks. And we can finally see how the language handles in real time. or at least in the real world.
How have those tests gone?
They were very interesting. The first programs that we wrote, or actually I've personally been writing Abra code. They shown that it's a completely different programming style. Abra is a language that has no control structures. You have no if then else. You have no for loops or while loops, just like other languages have.
Yeah, I mean, is it similar to any other language? What does it have a nearest cousin, or is this just a
Martian language?
It's a functional programming language. So nearest cousin would maybe be Haskell, but it's still so different from what happens in Haskell. We've tried to create a syntax that is very understandable to programmers, so very familiar to what they know.
Yes.
But the weirdness of Abra is that you have only function expressions. Abra has no built-in operators. There's no multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. All those standard operators that that programmers are used to, they are not built into Abra. Abra is so extremely simple. It literally only has 5 operations. One is obviously for functional programming, the function call. That will allow you to reuse other parts of the code. Then we have the heart of Abra, which is the lookup table. And that's a very weird innovation where every operation can be expressed as a lookup. So, for example, addition is literally done by looking up the value given input values in a table, what the resulting output value should be. And that's a very small table because we're doing it on a trit level. It means that we literally have a little table that tells if you have -1 and you have 0, then the result for addition is -1. If you have +1 and -1, then the result is 0. Right? So we have tables like that. And from that lowest level, we create higher level functions that use those lowest level lookups. So that means that, for example, if we have a single data type in Abra, that is we call it the trit vector. A trit is one of the 3 possible values that you have when you do trinary computation, and those functions combine multiple trits into a trit vector, and you can define your own data types from that. And one common use data type is the integer data type, for example.
Sure.
And I've written a few functions that can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division on trit vectors of any size. So that creates really crazy results. Just for fun, I used a trit vector of over 6,000 trits. And did some calculations with that. And to give you an idea, the value that can maximally be expressed with such a trit vector is over 3,000 digits.
Wow.
So you can do computations with ridiculous numbers accurately, but you can also gear it exactly to the needs. So if you only need a value that expresses values from 1 to 10, then you can deal with only 3 threads.
Yeah.
And that reduces the energy usage, because every thread that you have to keep alive in circuitry costs energy.
Sure. So my question would be then for the layman who wants to do any computation, how would they know how many threads to use, or is the point that you need to understand what you're doing to be able to build these programs?
Yeah, especially at the beginning, you will need to know what you're doing. You will need to have an idea of what it is to map to circuitry.
Yeah.
Because there's very interesting things going on there. For example, a function call isn't that clear cut as it is with standard CPUs. If you instantiate a function in hardware, then if you call that function, or what we call calling the function is not really a call. It's actually sending data through circuitry. Right, sending signals through it. And while those signals are being sent through it, you don't want to touch that circuitry.
Yeah, sure.
Because otherwise you interfere with the results.
Yeah.
So if a function would call itself recursively, you cannot actually do that in hardware. What you need to do is you need to instantiate a second function.
Yeah.
So the first function will have data flowing into the second function, and then the return values from that second function will be piped back into the original function to be further processed. And if you go even deeper, multiple recursion, then you have to instantiate a function for every level of recursion. So it's a very different way of looking at things.
Yeah,
and
very different.
That is built in the programming language.
I think that's the whole culture throughout the IOTA Foundation, is to look at things differently and do things differently, because we've never spoken to I was going to say a blockchain project, but it's kind of not really a blockchain either.
It's not.
As you famously said, Eric, it's the blockchain.
Yeah, the blockchain project was kind of a spin-off.
Yeah. So
accidental by effect.
Right.
Well, I guess that's how the universe started. So it's really crazy. What are like some of the biggest challenges that you're experiencing at the moment from a development point of view?
Well, of course, a really big challenge is having to figure things out. Right? We're so far at the forefront of computing that it's not even funny anymore. We're really having to carve our own path and do stuff that is completely out of the ordinary, which means that we're clashing with establishment regularly over things.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard about the DCI controversy, about the fact that they thought they found a problem in our hashing function.
I'm not sure that we did actually. What was the case there?
In that case, some cryptographic researchers were checking out the basic hash function that we were using in the IOTA system, and they found what they thought was a vulnerability. But the problem with that kind of niche knowledge, wow, tongue twister, is that if you're so focused on your own subject, like cryptography, like hash functions, right? You're usually not looking at the holistic view, at the big picture.
Yeah.
This hash function was part of a bigger thing with respect to security. So even though the thing they pointed out was well known, actually, by us, it wasn't a problem for security. But because they have a few dogmas, like you shouldn't roll your own cryptographic functions, they thought that they were right. They're very much in their mindset that we own the knowledge and we know everything. And so anything that's new is dismissed beforehand, right?
Yeah.
So, we bump into things like that, which created a lot of negative publicity in the crypto world around IOTA. But we're simply ignoring that and marching on. The funny thing is that the corporates that are getting involved with IOTA are all very convinced about what we're doing, because
Sure.
they don't look at that kind of fear mongering. They look at it in a practical way. They look at the quality of the team, the quality of the code, the quality of the ideas, the merit of the ideas, and they see the IoT coming, and they see that there will be a need for a communication layer between all these devices, and that is exactly where IOTA is positioned.
Sure. And I'm sure they see the commercial upside as well of working with.
That's the thing, right? For them, it's only about the end result, the dollars that float in.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which is oddly sort of anti-crypto, but an interesting partnership nonetheless.
Yeah, we have a large number of corporates that have partnered with us and are currently developing all kinds of proof of concepts. And this year has been the year of proof of concept building.
Yeah.
And I'm sure next year all those proof of concepts are going to come out all of a sudden. And that will definitely put IOTA on the map, because we will be one of the few cryptocurrencies that actually has implementations in the real world.
Well, that's great, because we've got a nice bag of IOTA sitting in our portfolio that we're definitely hodling at the moment. And
Yeah.
we're just excited to see where that goes. Hey, who knows? No one knows. I mean, but I think the most important thing is you have, I think, a world-class team delivering, as you say, really great ideas and getting on with it. And I think some of these partnerships, like I think we spoke about Porsche last time, was a partner that was using or was going to use IOTA. I think the automotive sector especially is going to be really exciting. So yeah, we're keen to see where this all goes. So Eric, before we wrap up today, is there anything else that you think our listeners might want to know? Any other things you've got on the horizon, or anything else you wanted to cover off?
Well, I can speak for hours about Cubic, of course. Well, one of the things I'm very happy with is that my role as product owner initially was more about setting up the project and getting a lot of documented and getting the website up and running and things like that. But we're now in a stage where I can finally go back to what's actually my passion, and that's programming. So I'm diving in myself. I'm still writing documentation. We should have documentation about the Abra programming language that I've been writing within a few weeks.
That's exciting.
And we're actually thinking of combining the documentation release with the release open sourcing the Abra interpreter, so that the community can start playing with it. That's important to us, right? The community. I've been interacting with the community a lot, and from the moment we got something of a partly working Abra interpreter, people started getting interested, and we've had people. There's one guy on Discord that took the syntax diagram and created a syntax highlighter for the IntelliJ platform, for example.
That's cool.
And that has been very helpful in my own Abra programming, because I now have highlighted syntax in my development environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just yesterday or the day before, the well-known guy Microhash that created a kind of cubic light in his spare time. He actually helped me out by implementing the just-in-time compilation for Abra while I was working on other stuff. So there's a lot of people that are getting involved, and once they get involved, they become very enthusiastic, because it's so much out there, right? This is literally a nerd's dream to work on. So
Yeah.
I want to get as many nerds involved as possible.
You are literally living the dream, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of the whole thing reminds me of the days of open source operating systems and the kind of collaboration and working together to develop something brilliant that's for the community and by the community. And I think that you guys are a world-class team that are delivering exceptional products. So I'm so excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, me too. I'm literally, like you said, living the dream. Working from home all day and doing what I love doing, right? And I, even though I'm literally working 24/7, 7 days a week, it doesn't feel like work. I'm having so much fun doing it.
Yeah. Well,
let's hope your wife agrees, Eric.
Well, we have a few agreements that I make time for her now and then.
well, now and then.
Are they smart contracts? Or?
I'm glad to say that she's very self-sufficient, and well, we meet up during the day a lot because I work from home, right? So
sure,
that's the other advantage of working from home.
Yeah, for sure.
And she knows this is my passion. That we have a good understanding about that.
Well, that's good. And the thing is, you're out building something that could conceivably change the world. So, there's got to be a little bit of flexibility there.
All right. Well, should we maybe get you back on in like Q1 or Q2 next year? I think because all our listeners have enjoyed the first interview, and I'm sure they'll enjoy hearing some more updates in the future as well as the ones from today. So we'll probably drop you a line maybe February, March time and see where you're at.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be wonderful.
Always happy to oblige.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to Crypto Pulse on iTunes and Stitcher. Do you have crypto-related questions? Or perhaps you'd like to meet other crypto enthusiasts? Well, you've come to the right place. As a listener of the show, you'll get free access to our VIP Facebook community. Simply head over to our website, www.cryptopulse.co.uk today and click the option to join. Thanks for listening. Information provided by Crypto Pulse via this podcast, website, social media channels, and any other medium does not constitute financial advice, investment recommendations, or any other type of advice whatsoever. The Crypto Pulse team are not professional financial advisors. Trading and purchasing cryptocurrencies do carry risks, and anybody wishing to partake in such activities should seek professional advice.